Good evening all and welcome to Leinster Laighin, a monthly Leinster Rugby Roundup show brought to you by the ThreeBOD Rugby Group, a group of live, online, global rugby chat shows covering grassroots to international level rugby and everything in between. On tonight's show, brought to you by Hit Social Media, we'll be taking a look at all the headlines from around the world of rugby. We'll be talking about a little bit about the history of the Leinster branch, and we'll also be discussing Leinster's recent InterPros against Connacht and Ulster. Right, so first up to kick things off, I've got Conor Broomfield here with me. Conor runs the Four Provinces Rugby Forum on Facebook. Happy New Year to you, Conor. Cheers for joining us. Why don't you start things off by telling us all about your new forum?
Good evening, Nathan, and thank you so much for having me on the show tonight. The group I set up over Christmas, Four Provinces Rugby Supporters, it's a concept I've been thinking about for some time, and over Christmas I decided to go with it as I had the time on my hands. Basically, I'd been involved with another group for a couple of years, a well-run group, but I wanted to set up a group to provide an environment for people to have discussion on rugby in a friendly environment. I wanted the group to represent all four provinces. I wanted it to be inclusive, and I wanted to be somewhere that promotes this discussion without agitation. So that's what we aim to do, and it's going very well so far.
Well, that's fantastic to hear. And I guess, talking about a global rugby forum for the four provinces to talk about issues, why don't we just dive straight into it? I mean, it seems like every single day we're getting something new coming across about, be it Six Nations, the Heineken Cup, CVC, whatever it is. I mean, we could talk so much. There's the Paul O'Connell joining the Irish backroom staff. There's, Raj and La Rochelle is on lockdown at the moment. There's a lot going on. So I guess why don't we kick things off by talking about a little bit about the news that was most recent that came through today. It looks like, so we obviously already knew that the next two rounds of Europe are gone. It looks like they're now cancelled rather than postponed, we heard today. And it looks like that it's going to go straight to a last 16. And depending on what reports you listen to, Leinster are either going to get Gloucester or Sale in the last 16 at home. As a Leinster fan, probably prefer the Gloucester one. But obviously, but what is your reaction to that news?
As a Leinster supporter, I'd be happy with the draw. As long as I see Leinster playing at home, I'd always be confident of a win. Against either of them sides, I'd be pretty confident. As regards the decision to completely cancel the last two rounds of games and go straight to a knockout, I don't think there's much choice. There's not much room in the calendar. I've seen suggestions from some people they should just scrap the tournament because it's ruined. I think the only logical way to look at that argument is to say that it's a business. The clubs are in dire financial need. You're running any other business. You're running a shop, you're faced with a decision of selling off your stock cheaply or throwing it out. What do you do? You take what you can get. You salvage what you can.
Exactly. You can salvage what you can, and I guess it's probably slightly fair. I mean, my reaction was it's fairer than what they had been doing, which was
of course
doing the 28-0 thing. Because for penalising teams 28-0 for COVID reasons, first of all, you're assuming that people are doing something wrong to get COVID and breaking rules, which we don't know is the case. And secondly, we saw at Glasgow, because they played Exeter, half their team had to that were close contacts and they couldn't field the team, and then they lost 28-0.
They lost 28-0. Yeah,
so
yeah.
I understand the scheduling difficulties, but that rule made no sense to me. And also the other thing I noticed was I saw a provisional top 16 as things stand, and to be honest with you, going forward, based on the results, they probably are the top 16 teams. All the big guns are in there. Leinster, Munster, Clermont are in there. Exeter are in there. Toulouse, Toulon, Racing. The teams that you'd expect to be there, thereabouts, are probably there. I mean, Ulster might have something to say about that, but I mean, they did lose their first two games.
Their first two games, yeah.
That being said, two absolute crackers. David Topping there. As an Ulster fan, it means Challenge Cup for us, but it's a business decision and we'll take it. It's better than nothing. I think that's everybody's reaction, isn't it? The other thing I want to talk to you about was this is something that popped up a little bit last year, the CVC investment into the Six Nations and what that means for broadcasting rights. And I saw an article yesterday that said it's probably going to be announced just before the tournament that CVC, the figure I saw was €409 million for 14.5% of the commercial rights of the Six Nations. God knows what that means. It doesn't sound like they're going to be controlling the ship. But in terms of what that means for us as fans being able to watch on non-subscription TV, you can't help but be a little bit worried.
Yeah, no, it's a concern, and it's another unfortunate consequence of this whole epidemic, the pandemic. It's forcing a lot of people, a lot of businesses, a lot of sports into the decisions they wouldn't previously have made. I think. Like the unions unanimously have, according to the media sources anyway, they've unanimously agreed to this deal. They're all in dire straits. I've heard figures of 60 million losses for the IRFU for this year, and I'm sure all the other unions are in similar positions. There's two concerns here. One that the English and French unions are going to be remunerated far better than the smaller countries like ourselves, like Scotland, Wales, and Italy, and that's a worry that their resources will be strengthened, while relatively speaking to ours. And the other thing is a supporter, as you mentioned. It's going to lead to us have to take out subscriptions. It's
not like we do that already. I mean, you've got what Air for the Pro 14. I'm a student in the UK, so I've got to pay for Premier and any Premier Sports whenever I want to watch Leinster, and then BT on top of that. I mean, who knows who's going to get the rights? I mean, there's talk. The chat I heard was that CVC have a good relationship with Sky because they sold the F1 rights to Sky. So it would look, that there's chatter that Sky might be looking to get the Six Nations, which means we'd be back where we started 10 years ago when, the Autumn Nations and Heineken Cup was on Sky, and the Six Nations on Sky would be a very strange thing. I mean, this is also speculation, of course. We'd have to fingers crossed and hope that we get to still watch Ireland play.
Yeah, The issue of having to take out multiple subscriptions now is a big problem for a lot of people, especially if you're a dedicated rugby supporter who doesn't have a huge interest in Premier League football or Formula One or golf or the other sports, and you're taking out your Sky subscription and your BT for the European rugby and Air for the Pro 14, etc., and you're only watching small parts. That's probably a discussion for another day. Will we get to a stage somewhere in the future where you can subscribe to competitions rather than for full sports networks?
We're getting a comment there. We're getting a comment there from Cian, who just says a time limited company rights deal is far better than an equity sale. He knows a lot more about this than I do, clearly. CVC will need to bring a lot more money into the competition to break even. And I guess that comes back to the business point you were making earlier. 60 million losses, you said, for the IRFU. The reports are they're going to be getting 45 to 50 million instantly from this.
Yeah.
The way things are at the moment, it's hard to say no to that. I guess any issues will just have to be worked out later. The last thing I want to talk to you about was, it's been on the cards for about a week or so now, that the women's and under 20 Six Nations would be postponed. Thankfully, the word was postponed and not cancelled. And we heard, I think it was yesterday, the official confirmation came through. And you can understand why, professionalism and the debate that surrounds that, the money that comes in means that players can be tested. Women's game doesn't necessarily have that, sadly. I know England is fully professional, France is semi-professional, but the other unions not so much. Obviously, the under-20s, it's difficult because they might be at different stages as well. So there is a wider conversation, and I know somebody who's quite high up in the RFU, and she talks a lot about the professionalisation issue, and that's probably what this comes down to, sadly. And there's not enough money because it's not professional to test players. But then there's the argument of, well, the tradition is all three happen at the same time. Why don't they try and keep that? And why don't they just, especially, why don't they try and keep that? And not quite, solidarity is not the right word, but why don't they try and make sure that they can play all three at the same time? Like, is it right to be prioritizing the men's game, even if it is an issue of professionalism, which is a different conversation for a different day? I don't know. I don't have the answers to this. I don't quite know how I feel about this, but it's a tricky one.
Nathan, I think the issue there is the fact that they're not full-time professionals and they have other jobs or they're students, and they can't be bubbled. It's completely a safety thing and down to COVID and stopping the spread of the virus.
So it's a bubble and testing thing.
Yeah, it's completely a bubble and testing thing. Yeah. It's unfortunate. I love watching the women's Six Nations and the under-20s. We've had 2 really successful years with the Grand Slam 2 years ago for the under-20s, and to the poor boys last year. They were so unfortunate having that massive win in England and winning 3 out of 3 and heading for another Grand Slam. And then this comes along and derails their plans. So yeah, it is unfortunate, but it was inevitable, I think, and there's no real way around it. Just hopefully we'll get to see both tournaments later on in the year.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And I guess that issue of should we try and keep them all together or not, I guess that's just up for individual people to make up their own minds on, and the tradition of the game, and whether all 3 women's, men's and under-20s should be happening at the same time, or does it make that much of a difference? But anyway, those are the main headlines. Like, we've taken up enough time chatting about them. As you said, these are all issues that we could talk about for a lot longer than we have done. But we're going to bring in Gerald Williamson now. Gerald is of the AIL Rugby and Club Rugby Forum, obviously, so he's very involved with the AIL and with the Leinster branch. How are you doing, Gerald? Happy New Year to you. Why don't you tell us about your involvement with AIL and Club Rugby in general?
Thank you very much, Nathan, and a Happy New Year to you. And yes, in August 2019, I was talking to Joe about rugby being well covered, especially the senior Interprovincials, Heineken Cup, Six Nations, and I said there's nothing about any club rugby, AIL, junior clubs, etc. And he said, well, why don't you start it? So myself and a couple of friends got the AIL Rugby and Club Rugby up and started at the end of August 2019. And it's been going well ever since. Our numbers are growing all the time. And then when COVID came in, being a senior citizen, I couldn't go anywhere. So I decided then I would start doing a history synopsis on rugby clubs. So I started doing, that was about March. And I kept at it. I started off with the AIL senior clubs, and I worked my way down to junior clubs. I did 2 or 3 clubs in each province at a time. And I ended up, I'm not almost finished actually now. I have done 242 clubs. Now, it's not just AIL senior clubs, the history, I've done sort of a history synopsis in the sense of when they were founded or started, who were the founders of the clubs, any notable players that came out of those clubs, what competitions they might have won. And I went through as many clubs as I could find, and then I went into I've discovered actually 4 wheelchair clubs. There are actually 4 wheelchair clubs in Ireland, and then I went on some inclusive rugby clubs. Also, I tried to do some tag rugby clubs, and I found it very stimulating, actually, as a sort of a form of mental therapy. And what you find in the different clubs is quite interesting. Some very interesting history snippets that you might find. I mean, for instance, I discovered one club with that had no bar for 57 years. Now, the clubhouse, all right, but there was no bar in it until a few years ago. And then you find out some stories about incidents of clubs. I don't know what people know about this, but when Tommy Bowe, for instance, was at Queen's University, he was playing in an AIL match for Queen's against Ballina. And when he turned up at the match, he discovered actually he had only two left feet, or two left boots. He forgot to have a right boot. So anyhow, he had to borrow boots from a club man in Ballina Rugby Club, and he actually scored a try with those boots. So he'll never forget that about bringing two left boots to a club to play a match. That's why he was possibly involved now in shoe designing and whatnot. He's marketing shoes and that sort of thing. He's learned a lesson there. And then I discovered another one about a guy down in Youghal who turned up to play a match, but he had no boots. And the referee spotted it after about 5 minutes into the match. He told him to go off and get a pair of boots. And the guy came back out, and he had a pair of Wellingtons. And he had the Wellingtons tied up to his legs, and he played in the Wellingtons for that match. You get little funny stories that happened and things like that. But I found it very fascinating, actually, the history of the various clubs, etc. But and then I went into some of the cups. I started doing some cup matches, and there's a cup called the Transfield Cup down in Limerick. And it was presented by this gentleman who is a circus owner, Frank Transfield. And he decided to donate a cup for a rugby match and to be played in Limerick. And it was discovered he played, the only way he could get the crowds in was if he donated the cup and get the people to come and see the circus first before playing in before the match was actually took place. And who was one of his entertainers, and he got his first job in the entertainment business was Charlie Chaplin, who acted as a clown in the show. And that's where Charlie Chaplin started his acting career, playing in front of a rugby crowd in Limerick. But
wow, that's
funny stories,
incredible.
Unusual stories.
Tell us about the Leinster branch. Have you got anything specific for us about the history of the
Leinster Rugby was founded in 1879, the 31st of October 1879, at the Lawrence's in Grafton Street in Dublin. The clubs that formed the Leinster branch were Wanderers, Lansdowne, Dublin University, Dundalk, and there was a club called Arlington School, Phoenix Football Club, and Stephen's Hospital. Now, Stephen's Hospital actually doesn't no more, is finished and ceased in 1989. But the Leinster branch actually was formed right at the same time as the Irish Rugby Football Union. And the Irish Rugby Football Union, of course, was an amalgamation of the Irish, of the Northern Football Union, which was founded in 1875, and the Irish Football Union, which was also in 1874. Now, the Irish Football Union was actually with clubs from Leinster, Munster, and parts of Ulster, whereas the Northern Union was clubs in the Belfast area. But Connacht branch was formed later in 1885. But Trinity, or Dublin University, which was founded, that was formed in 1854. Trinity is actually the oldest rugby union club in continuous existence in the world, I may say.
Wow.
The other interesting thing I did find out also, there's a Leinster Cup competition called the Dublin Hospitals Cup. And that's played usually between the different various hospitals in the Dublin region. It is one of the oldest cup competitions. It actually goes back to 1876. So these are amongst the things I've been finding out. There are, at the moment, there's something like 74, 75 clubs in Leinster playing rugby, from AIL clubs right down to juniors to minis clubs. The latest club actually that's in existence now in Leinster is the Carlingford Knights, which is based in the Cooley Peninsula up in above Dundalk. And of course, the patrons of that club, of course, are Rob Carney and Dave Carney.
Yeah.
They're from that area.
There you go. Of course,
So
the two loud lads. Yeah, of course. Right. Well, listen. It sounds like you spent your continuous lockdowns better than a lot of us have. There's not many better ways of doing it than looking at the Leinster branch. That's for sure. Yeah,
well, I next time I'll be concentrating on one of the clubs in Leinster, maybe next time, next month, hopefully.
That'd be great, and we look forward to hearing from you for our show next month about whatever club you choose to have a look at. But in the meantime, thanks a lot for joining us tonight, Gerald. That was really interesting stuff there. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much indeed for having me.
Not at all. Right, so now we get into the actual rugby part of our show. We're going to be joined now by Padraig Kelly from the Second Row Connacht Rugby podcast, and we're also joined by Chris Brownfield, who runs the South Wales Ulster Rugby Supporters Forum. Happy New Year's to you, lads. Thanks very much for joining us here tonight. I guess only really one place to start. I suppose as a Leinster fan, let's get the tough stuff out of the way quickly. Padraig, you were a very happy Connacht man a few weeks ago. What was your reaction to that game?
It was a great game, really, really. Well, I enjoyed it. I know you mightn't have enjoyed it as much, but it was it was a good game. I think tactically, Connacht were on top. Our kicking game was superb. I think we actually had Leinster's style of play pretty well scouted and nullified what you would normally try to do. As I think it was one of those games where you kind of go, this is why Jack Carty's constantly in the Ireland 10 jersey discussion. I think Tom Daly's now putting pressure on Tom Farrell in the centres. Our back row is starting to tick over nicely. It was just a great game, great occasion. First win in the RDS, first win in Dublin in almost 19 years. It's one of those things that you just have to. We needed to win that game. It's a shame we couldn't back it up the week after, but it was a game that we needed to win. And I know a lot of people have been kind of going, well, that was would have been Leinster's most senior team. And the thing is, I think pundits have to kind of go, well, when you vault and praise that line of talent that come through week after week when they've beat team after team of like first string Welsh teams have come over and got beaten by that stand-up Leinster team. It's got to be the same equivalency when they get beaten as well. You can't use it then as an excuse for a loss when you praise it for a win.
Yeah. I guess it's an interesting point. Yeah, I mean, I remember watching it, and everyone seemed to be very full of praise for Connacht, and rightly so. I mean, I was just the physicality they brought, particularly in D. I thought the way they attacked with their line speed and the breakdown. Conor Oliver had an absolute field day at the breakdown. I thought he's someone who's, again, I guess anybody who's been watching Connacht recently, in particular that Racing performance, where the young guys, particularly off the bench, the Olivers, the Prendergast, Thornberrys, Rooters, even the Lamb, the way those guys dominated the collision was really impressive, and they did it again against Leinster. So this wasn't a surprise. This performance has been in you, and it happened earlier on the season, albeit without the win away in Paris.
Yeah, and if you look over the three interpros, we actually brought that physicality across all three. It's just the first one that we lost against Ulster, the weather literally changed from the literally a lovely calm evening in Galway to a gale force wind being played into, which was just, if we knew we were going to play into that wind, we needed 14 more points because it was just that type of wind. Against Munster, it was a game of two defences. Like, there was very little attacking flair to be shown by either team. And that's proven by all the tries were scored against 14 men. That's how on top defense was in that whole game. So to be able to show what we can do in attack against Leinster was great, but that physicality has actually been across all three. And we were literally 10 minutes from winning either of those games that we lost across the InterPro series. I think we're a bit disappointed looking over the three InterPros, but I think individuals have put their hands up and shown what they're about. John Porch, a fullback, he's just going from strength to strength. Peter Sullivan came on the wing he started on the wing. I think he's a great talent. Sean Masterson at 8 has shown that he really doesn't care about the ability or the people he's against, because he's just going to come in and smash them on a constant basis. He's a proper physical 8. And then Paul Boyle comes in, shows what he can do off the bench. There's just some really great individuals, and they're starting to click as a 23-40, as a full squad. And when that builds, I think that the 4 Irish provinces are going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 in the Pro 14 until the South African teams come in for the foreseeable future, because it's finally there.
Greg will go away there. Connacht's well played against Leinster. That's why Carty needs to be in the Ireland squad. Yeah, I think the way he's been performing over the Christmas period, particularly as the InterPros were, such a high standard this year, and that's not always something we've been able to say in recent years. I think he's definitely someone who's played his way into one of those 3-10 spots for the Six Nations. Chris, we'll come to you now. I guess, the week after their first Pro 14 loss in a few years was probably not the best time to play Leinster. The two sides, went at it in terms of both picked full strength top teams after not necessarily doing so the week before. Was this a result you saw coming, and if so, did that make it any less disappointing?
All right, thanks, Nathan, for introducing me. And Happy New Year to everybody and our listeners and followers today. Nathan, I think if we were being absolutely honest, I think the supporters were pretty much split 50-50 on where they thought that was going to go. I think many people, off the back of the Connacht victory particularly, were very, very buoyed and seeing hopefully a win coming off the back of it. But we were also very, very aware that Leinster were coming fully loaded and were very much out to put things right after that sensational win from Connacht. They were absolutely fantastic the week previous. So it's hard to say, did I see it coming? I predicted a 3-point game from memory, 3 points, I think, on that evening. And of course, you guys in the second half ran away with it quite significantly after that first minute try in the second half. And from that point, I'm not going to say Ulster capitulated, because that wouldn't be respectful. But certainly Leinster found another gear, found their confidence, and very much at that point, I think the front 5 of Leinster very, very much dominated the breakdown on bits and pieces. So I thought it was going to be close. I didn't expect it to be as far away as a 12-point gap in the end. But certainly we've been very, very optimistic and positive. Ulster have come a long way under Dan McFarland. It's great to get him signed in again for another 2 years. And of course, there's been a wee bit of off-field uncertainty and bits and pieces going on. That doesn't account for what happens on the park at the end of the day, but certainly, it doesn't help when there's that little bit of instability. I've got to say, Leinster were superb in defence in that last 10 minutes when Ulster were going for the bonus point, losing bonus point that game from when David Shanahan came on with 5 minutes to go or 10 minutes to go. Ulster were pushing, and the defence, the line speed of Leinster was absolutely impenetrable, and there was no way, there didn't really look at any point as if we were going to score tries at that point, or indeed throughout the game. It didn't look as if we were going to score tries. Generally speaking, it went Leinster's way, without a doubt. You guys very much deserved the bonus point win, and to pull the 4 tries out of the bag in the second half was great performance. But as for our victory going back to the 2 weeks before that, the Connacht game, Madigan was the difference on the day in terms of the boot and playing with the wind as well in terms of the box kicking and kicking around the park. It was pretty much controlled well by our fly half on that day. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, I guess from the Ulster game for a Leinster point of view, if there's one image that stands out in that game, I think it was it was the second last break. It was the last breakdown of the game, just before Ross Byrne's interception that killed the game off, and you had Caelan Doris rushing up and get an absolutely smashing back. Could see it behind the line, and I think if there was a game that summed up Leinster's defensive intent, if there was an image that sums it up, it would be that. And I guess Conor, that for me, that was the main difference between the two Leinster performances. Was that back row and the intent they showed. They just dominated the collision and the breakdown much more. We didn't do that against Connacht. We got played off the park in the first half. Did that against Ulster, and we were in a much more comfortable position.
Absolutely, Nathan. Yeah. First of all, credit to Connacht for their win. They were brilliant on the night. They did everything right. Their line speed, their intensity, their accuracy, their creativity. They were just up for the game, and they performed very well. So Leinster weren't quite there. I guess I wouldn't say they went in overconfident, but they weren't quite at the pitch of the game, clearly from the start. And then when Sexton came off, and we didn't have a replacement to come on for him, we were in a real pickle. If you're struggling and you're on the defence, and you don't have your control there at out half, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. And that's what happened. The lads got back into the game, and they got back into contention. But Connacht were thoroughly worth their win. It was great performance. The difference between that and the Ulster game, then I'd say there was a lot of hard work went on during that week. A lot of work on defence, on line speed. To drive them all, I was really happy with. Two tries off that drive them all. And you got to be happy with that. I think there was a bit of going back to basics for that one as well. Like, there wasn't this spark and dynamism that you'd often see from Leinster in home Pro 14 matches. I think was very workmanlike, stacking that back line with big men, putting Ross Byrne at 13, which I thought was very unusual. We criticise him for not having the speed to play out half, and then Leo sticks him outside centre. But
I must say, Conor, just going in on that about the driving maul. Ulster, I think it's something they've got to really work on, because against Gloucester in the Champions Cup, Gloucester absolutely blew us off the park, and they even threw the mascot at that driving maul to throw it over the line. And again, it's something that Ulster have used as a weapon themselves to push over. But there's been a little bit of a sign that defensively against the driving maul, they're really struggling with it. And I think it's been identified as some of the sides really can put them under huge pressure.
Yeah,
I have a thing where anytime Leinster score a driving maul try, like who had a maul try for Leinster in the Leinster Rugby bingo, because it's such a weapon for Leinster. If you can stop them going forward at all, you have a chance of getting in the game. But once that maul keeps going, they're away in a hack. It's such a weapon. Like, there's a reason that Ronan Kelleher was one of Leinster's top try scorers. The hooker was just at the back of so many mauls. That's how the media attention got drawn on him. It's such a weapon, and to stop it, you have to be 100% on your game, because they can magically find every chink in a maul defence.
Absolutely.
You have to stop them getting them penalties around the middle of the field and kicking to the corner. I think that's where it starts with maul defence. Going back to Ulster's defence, that's an interesting one, because something that's really impressed me in recent weeks is the number of turnovers Ulster are winning, and they're getting Nick Timoney on the ball a lot, and Jordy Murphy. Both of them have won a lot of turnovers, but it's not down to them just individually. I think when they're isolating a man, everyone knows their role there. You've Marty, likes of Marty Moore and Tom O'Toole coming in making the initial tackles, and your locks clearing the support players, and then it's usually Timoney or Jordy coming in, or Marcel winning the turnover. So it's something I think Ulster have worked very hard on in training, and something that's working very well for you. Or if you could get the same emphasis on that maul defence as you are at the breakdown, I think you're very successful.
Yeah, I think.
I mean, go on. Sorry.
No, go on. Go on. What you
I was just going to say on that note, Marcel has been absolutely phenomenal, and I think it's great that Dan has actually started to bring Nick Timoney back onto the park more over the last sort of 5-6 weeks. It's obviously been known for a long time backstage that Marcel was on the way, and it's evident that over the last, I'm going to say, probably since start of January, Nick Timoney started to put his mark back on the park again, and he is phenomenally quick. He's a brilliant sevens player, but his pace to the breakdown and his strength of his body position is just absolutely phenomenal. And once he does latch on, especially with the new rules as they are, when you get that ball, you get it lifted, the penalty's going your way. But I've just noticed on a slightly different note, guys, Joe Lyon said, are we allowed to mention Ulster's discipline?
Yeah, so that was going to be the thing to come up. So there's three things here to talk about, and to be fair, I don't want to talk about just the Ulster because there was one incident that I think was just about okay from a Leinster side that I think we need to talk about as well. But obviously, there's the two Coetzee hits. The one he didn't get binned for on Porter. I think that ultimately led to a try because we mauled them. We didn't maul them over, but Cronin peeled off the line out, and then we went wide to Carney and he scored. Right. And then there was the one about 10 minutes later where then he hit Cronin high and he did get binned. Yeah. What about Coetzee's penalty count? There we go. There's those two. And then there's the other one I wanted to mention was Robbie Henshaw on Ethan McElroy. If you remember, Henshaw
went unnoticed.
If you remember, Henshaw launched a big up and under, went after it. McElroy took it well in the air and hit him as soon as he came down. Now, for me, let's start with that one. That one was borderline. Any higher, he's in trouble because he wraps. There's 4. Yeah. Go on, Connor.
Sorry, Nathan. I did watch that one in slow-mo. And he just about gets away with it. I think Ethan's feet were just touching the ground as he made contact.
But it was the height.
I think it was very well timed.
Yeah, but the timing was okay for me. But I tell you what, I was more worried about was the height of the actual tackle itself, because it was. I think it was the top of the chest. Any higher, I think he was in a lot of trouble there. And I think to be fair to him, I think what made it work worse was that Ethan's head kind of snapped back.
That was it. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think he was because there was a lot. I saw a lot of things on Twitter. People giving out about Coetzee's hits, and why aren't we talking about a few from Leinster? And I thought, well, that was definitely one that was worth talking about. But the Coetzee ones, I find these ones really interesting because the reason why he got yellow for Cronin and not red, because he definitely made contact with the head with force, was Andrew Bray said there was mitigation because of the change of direction. So Cronin's footwork stepped inside. Now, I don't know. I don't know the rule. I'm going to be completely honest with that. I do know there is something about mitigation and dipping. And if a player is dipping, I've never heard of a change in direction, i.e. a sidestep, being at mitigation for bringing from red to yellow. Lads, what do we make with that?
Yeah, I'm going to...
For me... you go ahead because... If you look at Papali'is against Munster, that was a change of direction and it was a red card. If Coetzee had his arm out like a clothesline like this and someone sidestepped into it, he'd be red carded for clotheslining someone. Just because the way he went to tackle was the way he went to tackle. The sidestep has no bearing on that. I think Andrew Brace took the easy way out, to be perfectly honest. He's on that call. A sidestep has never been a mitigation to go from red to yellow. And I think that's the first time. That's going to be like Ben Whitehouse's medium impact again, medium force, whatever it was. I think there are times where refs like this, they don't want to give a red if they think it's a soft red, but it's still a red. That's the reason these laws are in place and why they're being enforced so vigorously. Player safety is far more important than the spectacle on the pitch. And if the laws are refed, if more laws in professional rugby are refed to the T or as they're written, the game will actually be better.
Yeah, I tell you what,
I could actually pick up on that, but Padraig, I have to agree with you. For me, as an Ulsterman, it was a red all day. And we know it's a player's right to change direction. So how that became mitigating, I've got no idea. And I was surprised that came in as a yellow, to be honest. And has anyone heard? Has there been any sighting? I haven't heard anything. And
No.
The time for sighting is definitely gone past. So it looks like they race. But I tell you what,
I haven't heard anything from our side. So for me, I think he put himself in the spotlight with the first tackle on Porter, and I think he definitely put him put himself on the radar for Joey Neville. Just keep an eye, but it was unusual because he was tackling very upright all day. He was staying very vertical, and of course, with the sheer size of him and his strength, there was going to be that opportunity where he was going to catch someone in and around the neck and head, and I was surprised he done the full 70 minutes, so to speak, on that occasion.
Yeah, I mean, I tell you what really annoyed me about that was the change of direction interpretation. Was that that's something Leinster do a lot when they go do their one-off runners off 9. It worked quite a lot for them in terms of running into bigger men like Kutsia, is their footwork at the line, and it's something as a team that they do very well. And so all of a sudden, if you're saying that's a mitigation against being hit high, where does that leave you in terms of a major part of your phase play with your runners off 9? Because it was a brilliant piece of footwork by Cronin, and it's something he does very well. He's, for a big man, he's got very good footwork and very good speed, as we all know. So that was very frustrating. What about the Porter one? Because if anything, I thought the Porter one had more of a swinging arm to it. And yes, Porter dipped, but I also thought I thought he was lucky to not get at least yellow for the Porter one, which is the earlier one. What did you think about that, Chris?
I think if he had a yellow at that point of the game, and again, it was probably deserved if you're going to be really, scrupulous about it. Yeah, it was a swinging arm, it was head, neck, and of course, in the letter of the law, he could have even gone beyond that. In certain referees this year, or in 2020 season, that would have gone to a red in certain games. And I think Andrew Brace was trying to keep as many players in the park as possible for that massive derby match. And what it was bigged up quite a lot due to the recent wins on both sides. And so I think if he had been yellow carded earlier, I doubt he would have been on the park after 60 minutes of the game. I think Dan McFarlane would have pulled him earlier rather than having the 10 minutes from the Cronin and then playing on. So it could have had a massive impact on the game in many different ways, including Marcel's participation further. But for me, I think I'm surprised he got away with that. And that was probably the one I anticipated being cited for, if anything, I think.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to say this as an Ulsterman?
Yeah, it's an interesting one he didn't get cited. I guess while we're talking about Andrew Brace, somebody mentioned a comment there about Johnny Sexton's petulance, I think was the word they used. While we're talking about Andrew Brace, there was that exchange he had with Johnny. There we go. Nigel Quigley, only if we include Sexton's petulance. There was that exchange. Johnny's lining up a touch finder down the line off a penalty, and he's shaking his head, and Brace is saying to him, "What are you doing shaking your head at me? Just play the game." I think Brace was perfectly entitled to give out to him there. I was a little bit frustrated he's doing it as he's lining up the kick. I mean, I don't know. Talking to a kicker while he's lining up a kick didn't really sit well with me, but I think, he's dead right. And, our Leinster and Ireland fans, we love Johnny, but he does get away with a lot. What did you make of that incident, Conor?
Absolutely, yeah. I was thinking about that to myself, saying if that was Nigel Owens now, we'd all be celebrating them, and the clip would go viral and be saying, "Oh, Nigel, isn't he great?" And I love Johnny, a hero for Leinster and Ireland over the years, but I'd say he's hard to live with. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Well, while we're on the subject of Johnny, I want to talk about him and Ross Byrne linking up, because the two playmakers thing is something that Leinster have done a little bit before this season with Frawley at 12. Chris, it's something Ulster have done a lot with Mikey Lowry lining up at 15. Leinster doing it now as well. It's looking like gradually it's becoming something more and more prominent. I mean, because it's the Leinster Laighin, let's keep talking about Johnny. The Johnny Ross Byrne link up for me looked really good. I thought when Johnny had a little bit of pressure taken off him, he looked really good. Do we see this being transferred to an Ireland setup, or where either at 12 or 15 we have that second playmaker? And if so, who is it? Because this time a few years ago it was going to be Joey, but obviously Joey's we don't know where he's at the moment. Ross Byrne has stepped up the other night, but last time he played against England, he struggled. So I guess if this is where we want to go and we want to maximise what we can get left at it, because God love him, because of his age, it's not very fair, but because of his age, Johnny's going to have questions asked of him all the time. I don't think it's necessarily fair. I still think he's playing at quite a high level. But if we can get, what we can out of him by taking a lot of pressure off him, do we think this is a good idea? I guess, Chris, we'll go to you because, Ulster do this quite a lot and did this. I've been doing it all year, really, if not before, with Mikey Lowry at 15.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge play. And just on a side note to that, you can actually see what England are doing with Farrell and Ford. That's it. So they've been using it massively. I think it's a huge opportunity for which Ulster's doing well. I can see it being a huge play, and certainly Mikey Lowry. Do you know what? Is he a 10? Is he a 15? That debate we're having with so many players around the park at the minute, including obviously this stop deal. It was a 10 all the way through school. He's been a 10 for a long time. He's an incredible player, but go on, Conor.
Sorry, he won three cups with Inst, as far as I know. All at 10. I think he only started playing 15 when he was thrown in for that match against Leicester in Europe, 2018.
He just showed what he can do. But I think it's a phenomenally intelligent thing, especially, like I say, with the Sexton aging thing. And at the minute, I think someone actually asked the question, there's still no obvious successor coming through. There's not a definite plan of who's filling in. So if Ireland and / Leinster can find someone to, like I say, to ease that pressure off him, it gives him far more time and space. You can see what he done down the left wing last weekend when he just had that little bit of space. He's still got a huge amount of zip, a phenomenal boot the ball accuracy. And if he's got someone else that can just lighten that and take those big hits, because we know over the years people have been out to put Johnny in his ass at every opportunity, not necessarily maliciously, but he's always been a targeted player off the base.
Too.
So we know that. And of course, then if there is someone there that can actually share that effort, and for all whoever it is, it's gonna be great. Whether is it a 15 that steps up, or is it just another 10 that steps into that 12 role more frequently?
Well, the 15 thing is interesting because before in the Northampton game that Leinster had in the RDS back before Christmas, when Hugo Keenan was supposed to start on the wing, but then when Jimmy O'Brien had his concussion, Hugo went to fullback, and I thought that day he played that second playmaker role, and he did it not as much the other night. I think the other night he got his man of the match more for his running from deep and his footwork, and I thought his base backfield coverage was actually really good as well. But he's an interesting one now because I think he definitely put his hand up at least to be with that performance the other night. I think to be the main man in the 15 shirt going into the Six Nations. So I think he's definitely a candidate to be that second playmaker role. What do you think about that, Conor?
He's shown touches. I think Hugo is a very smart player. He's a good all round player. I'm not convinced he's the second playmaker yet, to be honest. He's shown some nice touches in attack. I think the way I see it now, I've discussed it with some of you. I think we're in a bit of a pickle at the moment in a number of positions where we've guys coming to the end of their careers, and we've a lot of young guys that just aren't quite ready yet to take over. I think you look for scrum half. I know the debate goes on about John Cooney and like he should be in the Ireland squad and everything, but Farrell clearly doesn't rate him, so he's not going to pick him. But you're looking at young guys like Craig Casey, even the lads up in Ulster, Lewis Finley and Nathan Doak. They're all guys with huge potential. Casey is that bit closer, but do we really think that Andy Farrell is going to throw him in the Six Nations? No. So out half, then you look at Harry Byrne, Ben Healy, you like at the moment I'm covering players under 23 in every position in my group. Our half is stacked with talent, but they're all under 23. They're all a bit raw. They all need more European experience. Centre then possibly Frawley, possibly Stuart Moore. Work to do on his defence. So they're the type of guys that'll be playmakers. You know, we could have an attack in a couple of years' time with Ben Healy, Craig Casey, Harry Byrne, Stuart Moore, ring rows. You know, and we won't be talking about second playmakers. You know, the guys on the wing, look, all the wingers coming through, and it won't be a consideration. But I don't think there's an overnight fix for this Six Nations, to be honest. And I'm not expecting any radical changes to the team.
I mean, it's that big debate they're talking about. You know, about certain play positions are still up for grabs and very uncertain. And the debate about Stockdale, is he 11, is he a 15, is it Keegan on 15? You know, those two positions, it's plausible that during the match they actually switch. And I think that was going on a wee bit during the Autumn Internationals, whether that was intentionally or it was just the players going back to the position they felt more comfortable in. But it was interesting when they were on the park, just seeing how often they actually both seemed to be playing. The 11-15 rule switched around a little bit.
That's not groundbreaking stuff. I think a lot of countries use that tactic where they interchange and you cover the territory between you. It's like you know, for both Leinster and Ireland, we've had for 22 or 3 years, we've had Gervin Dempsey and Rob Kearney, like two really dominant guys. The Rob Kearney, arguably the most dominant player pull back in the air ever. You know, is there an argument there? Maybe not the best all round fullback, but certainly in that facet of play. So we're used to having these full backs that are totally dominant in their position. Maybe not as dynamic or threatening in attack, but covering the backfield. And so maybe we just have to rethink what we're looking for, what we can reasonably expect from our full backs.
I think it's a real shame we've lost Will Addison.
Yeah, absolutely.
Seriously, you know, I think he was almost in the mold of the Jared Payne type mold, and you know, very much his cover play, his awareness, his pace, his change of direction. He was pretty close to the full package, but then of course, and he's, you know, we're not sure if he's going to be on the park again or what the crack is really.
He seems crocked, doesn't he?
Was that sorry, Nathan?
No, as the poor lad, he just seems absolutely crocked, doesn't he?
Yeah,
that's it.
His whole career has been like that.
That was always a risk of bringing him over.
Career, yeah.
It has. I guess we've got a few minutes left. So we'll just wrap it up. One or two more things I wanted to talk to you about. I mean, we spoke a little bit there about, you know, Conor's doing his under 23 piece, and we spoke about a few lads there who may or may not be in on the Andy Farrell radar. Padraig, I mean, from the Connacht perspective, I mean, from the outside looking in, there's a lot of chat about, you know, does Tom Daly get a look in? Does Conor Oliver manage to get in, or is that back row too stacked? I mean, from your own point of view, if there was who are the lads who have really stuck their hand up and that you actually think that Farrell might be picking?
I'd start at scrum half and Canan Blade. He's the form 9 in the country at the moment. I don't think there's many people can say otherwise. Himself and Marmion being of a similar standard, a very high standard, are pushing each other to better and better performances. I think all three of our second rows in Thornbury, Delan and Roux could easily be in a Six Nations squad. I'd almost put Shane Delahunt over Dave Heffernan at the moment. His throwing at the line out seems to be fractionally better. And what's really good, his work rate around the pitch, and that's something Andy Farrell really appreciates. And the back row is just so stacked. Like, there's so many internationals in the other three provinces. How can Oliver would have needed the next two games in Europe, which are cancelled, to put his hand up again? Hopefully we get like that game, rescheduled game for the week after next, and some of the players can put their hands up for selection there. But I think the Six Nations squad will be announced by then. It's such a shame.
It's a massive shame. I mean, because I think I could be wrong here, but your next game isn't until after the Six Nations starts. Am I wrong there? Did anything get rescheduled?
There are rumours of the Dragons match being on the weekend of the 23rd as well. One of our rescheduled games being pulled forward for the week.
Okay.
The week after next. There are rumours floating around, so which means that's a certainty.
Well, I guess in terms of rescheduled fixtures, obviously, we've got Munster coming up. That if both. That was supposed to be the second round of a European weekend, European doubleheader weekend. So, in theory, both teams should be going at that full medal jacket. So that could be something else. Haven't really got time to talk about that fully, but I guess in terms of other rugby, we do have a little bit of rugby this weekend. Tomorrow night, up in Kingspan, we've got the 2A teams. We've got Ulster and Leinster going head to head. Frustratingly, when I checked Twitter beforehand, Leinster hadn't announced the side yet, so I didn't know who we'd be talking about. But Ulster have. Obviously, Chris, you're in a much better position to talk about this than I am, but the big name on that team sheet for me was Aaron Sexton at 15.
Aaron Sexton is, let's just hope we don't sort of build him up into something that doesn't happen, but he's known as the Bangor Bullet for a reason. I think he's the second quickest man in all time in Ireland and European silver medalist over 100 metres. We've watched him a lot in the Ulster A, so because of the Celtic Cup over here with Scarlets, Dragons, Ospreys, and Cardiff, Dragons and Ospreys, we get to see them a lot. And last season before last, Aaron Sexton covered end to end without anyone laying a finger on him. His step, his pace he's just a great player, but his defense is also immense. He's not just a fast guy, he's got phenomenal strength in the tackle. He's not afraid to put himself in the line for his lads. And we are really looking forward to seeing Aaron get the chance to fully step up and getting the ball in his hands. I think there's a fair few talent coming through, and for Ulster's Academy, obviously now we've got Kieran Campbell has now been appointed as the Ireland under-20 coach as well, looking after our academy lads. They're producing some real talent, and it seems to be again the backs. Lewis Finlay is going to be again phenomenal going forwards. Dave McCann, great to see him back in the captaincy shirt at 8. Still a big debate. Is he a 6, 7, or 8? But at the minute, I think they're trying with 8 to see how he goes and maybe looking to build for the future in the absence of Coetzee. But there's going to be a big gulf between McCann stepping in and Coetzee stepping out. But tomorrow evening it'll be great to see the contest. And I think, would it be fair to say the last time, Nathan, Leinster didn't feel remember in the friendly, the Ulster-Leinster friendly back in, was that early December? I don't think Leinster fielded their best A's 15. Is that fair to say?
Well, that's the thing. I don't really know how it depends how Leinster themselves within the setup view the A structure. I mean, is it for academy, sub-academy guys, or is it for the 30-man squad who aren't playing week in, week out? I'm not quite sure there.
I'd say it's usually more academy based, isn't it?
I think so.
I saw a suggested team on a forum yesterday for this match from a guy it's normally pretty accurate, and it was basically made up of academy guys and a couple of sub academy guys, and the likes of Greg McGrath that's in on trial. I saw the likes of Marcus Hannon, loose head prop on it. Tom Clarkson.
Ulster feeling Big Milos tomorrow in the front row. I mean, he's an 8. He's a front row. He's a pack in his own right. He's a late. So I think often the A games are also used. The blood players are coming back off an injury, return phase play and stuff as well. So it's not strictly going to be just the academy lads and the sub. There are also some guys are coming back as well. But
there's a few big names in there. I saw McBurney. McBurney's playing, isn't he, as well?
Yeah, aye. Are you guys aware it's being shown on BBC Sport and BBC iPlayer? Can you guys get that?
Yeah,
so they're streaming it online. The BBC Northern Ireland are putting it on the website.
That's right. So you can get it. Aye, good. I think it's worth giving that a plug. So it's a 3 o'clock kickoff tomorrow, Nathan, and I think the more there you are, and Gilbert's just shared it. The link. I think the more people get behind it, it's something Johnny Petrie pledged. Because I think most of us have been saying on Twitter, are these games being televised, social media, how can we get them? And it wasn't happening for whatever reason. But in 2021, there's no reason why they can't be on a social media forum somewhere. And to be fair, Johnny Petrie and Stuart Martin up there in Ulster and Kingspan have managed to get, Jim Neely covering it for commentary, and they've put on a good gig for it. So let's hope it sort of sets the benchmark and we get more of it, because I think if we get more of the Ulster A's, the ladies rugby, we just need more of it, because we're being shut out from behind. We're not getting behind the lads in the stadium. So can we just have more access to this kind of high level rugby and give the fans something back? Really, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
Hobby horse.
I know they've been showing Leinster at least have been putting highlights packages up of the A games recently up on YouTube, but they're 3 or 4 minutes long. That's not what you want. Not what you want. But anyway, so I'll definitely be tuning into that. And I imagine that quite a lot of people will be, considering there's no other Irish rugby on this weekend, sadly, on a weekend where we should have been in European action. But anyway, that's more or less our time, I think, lads. Thanks very much for joining us. Great chat. And yeah, so that wraps up this episode of the Leinster Laighin, the first one of 2021. Thanks to Conor, who's still here, Gerald as well, who will be joining us next month again to talk some more history about the Leinster branch, and of course to Padraig and Chris, and best of luck to Connacht and Ulster for the rest of the season, and of course looking forward to tomorrow. Just a couple of things to tell you about. 3BOD Rugby Group has a new Facebook page where all your favourite live shows can be found, along with regular updates from the world of rugby. We are also supporting a petition that has been circulating recently to postpone the Lions tour to 2022 if they decide that fans cannot travel this year. So if that is something that you'd be interested in getting involved with, I think Joe will be circulating some links around with that. The next show in the 3BOD group is on Monday, the 18th of January at the same time at 8:30 p.m. It is the Keego and Big Joe show with couch pundit Keego and our founder, Big Joe Shep. We hope you've enjoyed this show tonight. This has been the Leinster Laighin, part of the 3BOD Rugby Group. Happy New Year to everyone.